Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for our preview of Bahrain Victorious 2025. Vive la France. They've got one of the best, or well, maybe not best, we'll discuss that, but one of the most hyped French talents in the world joining the team. Bit of a strange fit. We're talking about that, transfer, and more, as well as recapping their 2024 season. What happened? This team's, Benji, has gone from sort of mediocrity. Then they changed the name to Bahrain Victorious because the horse is called Victorious.
Yes.
In Bahrain. They got mocked for trying to have nominative determinism. They then won everything in 21, and I was like, proof nominative determinism works. And Cole Braley had the heart issue, had to retire. Morich not winning as consistently. Landa has a down year and leaves. Haig has a couple of down years. And now, 2024, Benji, the numbers don't look so good.
Yeah, and like, let's be honest, if we go back to the years you mentioned and we take a look at 2022, for example, which was, let's be honest, also not was a good year, because MSR was won by Mohoric back then. We had multiple World Tour victories with Teuns, Flesh Wallon, etc. Won a stage at the Giro with Buitrago. Then we go to 2021, and I think that's the year you're pointing at. Very much 30 victories. That was the year, eh? That was the year where everybody was shouting Bahrain is doing extremely well. Paris victory. We had so many Tour de France victories. I think 3 in total, 2 of Mohoric. And it's gone down gradually since then. But then I looked at this year, 2024, and I'm sorry, but this year is really bad. Bahrain in 2024 is significantly worse than 2023 instead of looking at the results. And because in the past, we always had the excuse when it comes to the results that, but Bilbao had a lot of top 5s in these 1 week races, and this rider had a lot of top 5s in these 1 week races, and they were in the top 10 of nearly every Grand Tour, and that was the case there. But if I look at it this year, there's a lot less to really shout about. So let's take a look at the exact numbers of this year. 13 victories, 3 World Tour victories. That is not good for Bahrain. Not so victorious. 0 Grand Tour victories in that. That's, well, actually, no, there's 1 Grand Tour victory, right? No, there's 0.
No, 0.
In my head.
Yeah, they didn't win in the Giro because Santi, I can't even remember what Santi did this year except for Paris-Nice. I know he did Paris-Nice well, but what happened after that?
Tour? Yes.
10th at the Tour.
So yeah, that it's something, but it's like, I'll go through it. We've got classics.
On the last day.
Yeah, on the last day he got into the top 10, you're right. So it's like barely getting that top 10 in the Tour de France. Well, in the past they were consecutively in the top 5 of Grand Tours, top 10 there, Jack Haig and so forth back in 2022 era. But when it comes to the classics, Pale Bilbao getting 3rd at Quebec, Mohoric getting 5th at Strade and 6th at Sanremo, and Buitrago getting 10th at Flash. I'm sorry, but we're used to Bahrain being competitive for victories in some of these races, and Mohoric is a big part of that when it comes to the classics, and he just had an off year. His year this year was not good. That's an understatement, because you'd expect him to be in all the classics playing for the victory, but this year that was just not the case. And I feel like there were a few injuries here or there in his year, especially after that gravel event, some sickness here or there that impacted everything. But at the end of the day, there's no replacement results by other riders in the team either. And then we go to the 1 week races. Yeah, Buitrago won a stage at Paris-Nice and Bauhaus at Tirreno and Govakar at Guangxi. Like, in the stage win department when it comes to 1 week races, I'd say they did good. Getting those 3 stage wins in World Tour stage, that's a good result. But it's in all the rest that it isn't there. And yes, they have some GCs in top 10s in World Tour races. For example, Bilbao 3rd at UAE Tour, 6th at Itzulia. Mohoric got 2 top 10s at Polonia and Renui when it comes to GC. Then Tiberi got a top 10 at Catalunya. But we're expecting Bahrain to be consistently fighting for those top 7s, roughly in the GC of every single 1 week race throughout the season, because that's what they were so consistent at in the past. And that combined with 0 Grand Tour victories, there is no way in hell you can call this a successful season.
And the Tour, yeah, okay, Santi gets into the top 10 on the final day because Ciccone, I don't know, rode backwards in the TT, I think, but you don't really remember it, to be honest. That doesn't say. The Tour, they got sick. In the 2024 UCI ranking, they're 17th. 17th!
Yep.
That's, yeah, there's 18 World Tour teams. Of course, there's 3 Pro Conti teams in the top 18, Arkea, Lotto, and Israel. But yeah, they're only 1,700 points ahead of Cofidis. And bear in mind, this is a team that they're not the biggest budget. They're of course they're not a minnow, but they have not the biggest, but they're not a minnow. So they have a decent budget. They got a lot of riders, I would say, in their prime or who are like not young talents who should be performing consistently, scoring points. So
I do,
yeah, not a great year at all.
One of those riders that is entering their prime is Antonio Tiberi, the cat killer, and he did perform. Getting top 5 at the Giro, for example, plus the white jersey, that's a good result for Tiberi. That's what you'd hope for at the start of the season. When it comes to Vuelta, wait.
Somebody had a hot take that Antonio Tiberi before the year would be top 5 of the Giro.
Did you?
No, you did.
Oh, I did not remember.
I said Moritz wouldn't win a World Tour race.
And that is...
Did he not?
Correct, right?
I think so.
Quite a sad one to have correct, to be honest. We got both hot takes correct of this team. That doesn't happen often. But hey, we predicted 8 and 7 World Tour victories, and it's significantly less than that. Which
goes to show, yeah.
We said at the start of the year they'd have less victories, but I didn't expect it to drop by 75% the amount of World Tour victories they had this year. It's actually a shocking year, and the one rider that really performed, in my opinion, is Tiberi, and he would have had a result at the Vuelta, I believe, if it wasn't for him having it illness that made him drop out? Gastro.
Bad heat. Okay, heat stroke.
Okay.
On Hazayanis.
Well, yeah, he didn't finish, so no result. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, they didn't have a great year. And that's the problem. It's a strange team construction, but as I said, it's also like they have riders who are, Bilbao, very much a down year. Caruso, I don't remember. He's 37 years old. It didn't really happen.
Older and older in their career as well. And like, there also was a drama with Wout Poels. Was it with the Vuelta or the Giro?
So in Tour of the Alps, he was there with Tiberi, and then they obviously weren't happy about something or the new contract, and then they kicked him off the Giro start list, and then he still extended. So all very strange. I'd say Bauhaus was solid for the first part of the year, but then they really were leaning on him. So he was solid enough, but yeah, no, he's not a big winner. But then they extended him till, they extended Bauhaus till the end of 27. Benji, they gave him a new 3-year deal, I think.
Like, I will say,
I don't know.
He's 30, but he has been a cornerstone in the team in terms of like every year he finds that one victory in like a chaotic sprint stage or a Tirreno or something like that, where he ends up delivering that way. Last year he didn't, but then he got podiums at Tour de France stages. And I'm pretty sure this year he went to the Tour de France again and also got a podium at a Tour de France stage, yes? In Nîmes. So at some point, it doesn't shock me if like in the next years, Bauhaus does get that Tour de France victory after multiple years of getting like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, that kind of vibe. Because if you keep trying, it might strike correct once. It can happen. So I'm much more okay with Bauhaus getting a 3-year contract than Mollema had, for example, at Little Trek.
Yep. Yeah, because he's a winner. He's a winner, Bauhaus, and he's also improved. Like we used to sort of say in jest, he's a pro Conti sprinter, but then he started winning bigger races. So he is a winner, and he's not stagnating. And look, Merlier is 2 years older than him, and he's going to be in his 31, 32, 33 years. Merlier's been one of the best top 3 sprinters in the world. So maybe Bauhaus, he's not just going to decline. But yeah, it's we even built into our expectation, Benji, like a 33% decrease in the World Tour wins. And then they were well under that. So not a good year. The vision of the team is a bit strange.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like they midway through the year picked up Rob Stannard, had the very, very strange press release being like his doping suspension was all incorrect, and a court was like, well, it wasn't, because it's a court ruling saying that he was a doper. So that was strange, not just to pick him up, but then also to create that rod for your own back by putting that out there.
Crazy decision, in my opinion. Like, there's so many cyclists out there of the level of Rob Stannard, in my personal opinion, to the point that why go out of your way to choose to take on Rob Stannard after that suspension, a rider that is easily replaceable all over the cycling world right now? Because let's be honest about it, he's not an all-star talent there. Like, he was good back in the day, but up to a point.
Yeah, he was good in U23s, and they took the samples from that year, and he got done for doping, dude.
Exactly. It's crazy to me that they fucking picked that rider up. I'm sorry. That is a bad look for the team. That is a bad look for cycling. I do not like that at all.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially with the press release, it was very odd. And the UCI had to come out and be like, hold up. What are you talking about with the response to it? So let's look at their transfers for this year. I guess we've already sort of decided with that by talking about it, because he was at the end of the year. And they bring in, basically they have, from what I can see, they've given all the money to Lenny, and then they have absolutely no money elsewhere, like literally minimum contracts only. So they've given all the bag to Lenny on a 3-year deal, Martinez from FDJ, and then everyone else is neo-pros or guys on 5 figures.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I do gotta mention, I think you mentioned about pools extended, but I think he's leaving to Astana, Kazakhstan. I'm pretty sure.
That's correct, yeah, sorry.
But outside of him leaving, Arashiro, Zuterlin, Wisniewski, Rajovic, we've got Friese Peitersen, Cameron Scott, and Ahmed Madan. Let's hope that gets reverted, because Ahmed's a nice guy, friend of the podcast. So come on, Ahmed, you can do it. Rest of the list there, if we take a look at that list, there's a lot of rouleurs in there, no? Arashiro is that all-star domestique of like back in the day, but last year I feel like I've seen him less. So it's not a shocker to me that he's departing the team if this list remains. When it comes to Zuterlin, Friese Peitersen, those two guys combined with Cameron Scott also, didn't he have like a prologue somewhere where it was like pretty shockingly good this year? Cameron Scott?
What about him?
It's your island.
Sorry. I was checking that 2024 UCI points. Sorry, man.
Cameron Scott. Didn't he have like a good prologue or something this year?
Yeah, it was either him or another Australian.
What the fuck is that for an explanation? There's so many Australians.
Tour of Austria. Cameron Rogers. Are you not talking about Little Trek Future Racing? Cameron Rogers, Michael Rogers' nephew, in front of Ghana. Maybe both of them did it.
Not second at Romandy prologue. Hey,
that's pretty good. And then,
sorry, I did a cool celebration for knowing that, but continue.
Oh, I'm now checking if Cameron Rogers did anything.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he won the prologue at Tour of Austria. Yeah,
congratulations.
That was ahead of Ghana.
Celebration.
That was ahead of Ghana.
Yeah, but Ghana was watched at that point.
It was also on a road bike, and there's a corner every 5 minutes.
Ghana having to accelerate every 5 meters in a prologue must be one of the funniest sights of the year.
Ghana's like, I'm not sure if you understand any Oscar and these, but it's July, and during the summer, I only ride a track bike, so I don't know why I'm here at this race. Yeah, he's gone. Any of these a big loss?
Yeah, he's gone.
Well, I mean, like Rajovic, I'm not surprised he's left. Yeah, I guess the big loss, the loss is Pools. It's not that he would be cheap, but he's also, he did win races. Like he was sixth in the Alps. He won the last stage of Tour de Hungary. Like he's a good rider still.
Yep, that's correct.
But I also probably would let him go too if I have not a big budget.
I think so too. And then we look at the incoming transfers, and I'm like, okay, can they replace his list? I think so. Seems easily replaceable. And then I see the first name, Lenny Martinez. You spoke about him already. He's on a big salary. Do you remember what the amount was? Was it 800K a year, or was that wrong?
2 mil a year for 3 years. 6 mil package.
Yeah. Because we were doubting whether it was 2 mil for 3 years or 2 mil per year. Which 2 mil per year was insane, and is still insane in my personal opinion. Because I think the press release said that, in my words, I'll regurgitate. Is that a word? I'll regurgitate what the press release said, that he's the closest Frenchman to potentially top 3ing the Tour de France. So that's the goal they're aiming for, or something, is what I perceive from that press release. And when I think about that, I think that's a very out there goal, to say the least. Because my view of Lenny Martinez right now is, okay, if you look at the problems that the team has right now, it's that they cannot consistently sustain top 5s in 1 week races at the moment, which they did 1 to 2 years ago. So for Lenny Martinez, the goal for next year for me is trying his hand at a Grand Tour top 10. Plus, when it comes to 1 week races, try and get consistent top 10s, top 5s in all 1 week races he rides, and try and maybe get a World Tour victory somewhere. That combination.
Yeah, I don't know what they're seeing, to be honest, because he's a really good one-day rider on like a hard course.
Yep.
He's quite explosive. Of course, his long climbing solid on a steep climb too. But in terms of putting it together for GC, he's very, very far away. And they have been a historically good GC team. Like they've got Santi moving. But do you expect Lenny Martinez to be better on GC, Benji, than Pello Bilbao for the next 2 years?
I think in 1 week races it's possible.
There's a TT.
Tour, I'm more, yeah. That's where it depends, you know. Didn't Lenny Martin have like one good time trial that said, "Ooh, he might be able to do something"?
I think he's like not bad at it but he just is constrained by the realities of his size. Like I don't think he's just like horrendous at it. He's just so small.
But like Catalunya. Does that usually not have a time trial?
Usually doesn't have a TT. Usually doesn't, yeah.
So those type of races, I'm like, okay, can compete for a top 5 in GC perhaps is what you'd hope for, but that's the top 7-ish is the area where I perceive him. Romandie and Swiss will be hard with the time trials. But then again, if there's a big mountain in Romandie or Swiss and there's only prologue length time trials, then the possibility is once again there. So I'm not too bearish on him when it comes to 1 week races, but I just don't see it yet when it comes to a Grand Tour. It's weird to say, but he's a bit of a fragile rider, because even when it comes to echelons, I've got a hard time figuring out how this man will survive that day.
To be honest, his season was really good up until he decided to leave. So he wins on opening day. He's second in Camino to Vingegaard. He wins La Guelia against UAE. I think Ayuso was there. Young Christian was there. So that's not a soft race. He's 7th in Catalunya. He's 8th in Strada. Like that's a good result on that's with the good riders there, obviously. He then wins 2 of the 3 Doubs Besançon Jura Doubs races. He's 8th in Romandie, wins Alpes Maritimes. It's all looking good. And then he says he leaves, and then they change the schedule. So he was never meant to do the Tour. He was meant to do the Vuelta, then gets sent to the Tour. And his season's kind of a write-off from then because they changed all the rounds. So it was looking really, really good. They then changed it. They should have stuck to the original plan for their own benefit. Yes. They fucked him over. They fucked themselves over. And so maybe I'm being too bearish, Benji, because he's already getting multiple top 10s in World Tour GC 1 weeks.
I think the reason you're more bearish is because you also think about Lenny Martinez's performance relative to the salary that is being rumored when it comes to this transfer. If it is $2 million per year for Lenny Martinez, then I'm sorry, but there are cheaper options to try and top 10 1-week races throughout the year. This is, in my opinion, then when it comes to Bahrain, an investment towards the future where they really wanted to sign Lenny Martinez because they believe that in a few years he can be the rider that they're hoping he is, which is podiuming the Tour de France, was literally the press release saying. So I'm not sure I see that. I'm looking at the top 10 1-week race rider that he was at the start of 2024, combined with stages at a Grand Tour and maybe a top 10.
Yeah. I'm surprised UAE didn't go for him, but I guess they got a lot of ambitious young climbers already. Or
how many French riders do they have?
None. They last one, Civico, none. So they had the guy who retired, Brunel, who's back. They then I was thinking Bora, but Bora got Hindley, Vlasov, Roglic. So there's Ineos, I guess. But then they probably don't want to pay $2 million for Lenny Martinez.
Do you think it's a good place? We're talking about this transfer from the perspective of Bahrain Victorious. But do you think Bahrain Victorious is a good place for Lenny Martinez to be at, with the amount of pressure that will be on him, considering the large amount of money invested on him right now?
I think it's good in that he gets all the opportunity.
Yeah.
I think it's bad that there's going to be a huge amount of pressure because they've got it into their head. The reason he's ended up there is they've offered a crazy salary. They've got it into their head that he's someone, and so he's going to be at the Tour de France. And then when he doesn't come top 5, maybe he does. That would be really good for him and French cycling and for that team. Maybe he does.
Even
but
if
he doesn't come,
it's a move forward from what we've already seen. We've never seen Lenny Martinez show the potential of top 10ing a Grand Tour yet, because that requires the recovery day to day and the 3-week long endurance as well. So that would already be an improvement, top 10 in a Grand Tour, which it's not impossible. The guy's literally 21.
Oh, you can top 10 Grand Tour with it easily.
Yeah, I think so too.
But there's going to be a lot of pressure. So that's maybe the drawback if it doesn't. And listen, it's not a team with a good trajectory if you look at this calendar year, is it? It's so that's more as well, looking at the trajectory. So Martinez is a wait and see, bit of a strange fit, but they brought in another young GC rider this year, and they immediately got him to top 5 the Giro, win the white jersey, and look very, very good, Antonio Tiberi. So if they have one of the main successes they had this year was bringing a young GC rider, get him to perform in his home Grand Tour. So let's not assume they can't do it.
Is it weird that now, looking back at the hot takes from last year, that the hot take of Tiberi top 5ing the Giro doesn't feel like a hot take anymore?
Well, yeah, because he did it.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't remember what the mindset was going into this year to the point that was a hot take. Because I guess he hadn't shown that GC quality to that point, I guess. It was more the potential stage winner vibe. So like
he hadn't done anything like that. He came 7th in UAE and
but
that was it.
Compared to Lenny Martinez, he could time trial and he had shown proper climbing performances like Martinez, where I think Martinez has a higher potential in terms of climbing, pure climbing.
Yeah, and winning. Like Martinez won 5 races this year.
Facts.
So, yeah, he's also a consistent winner. So now moving on to the rest of their transfers. Some of the riders you maybe won't know so well. So Matthias Parsons is Dutch rider. He was a kind of an all-round rouleur on Lotto Destiny. He'll be stage race rouleur support.
Yep.
One would think, on a low contract. Zach Erzen is so then there's 5 riders that come from CTF Victorious, which is their development feeder team.
Yep.
Zach Erzen is Slovenian. He's the son of the team manager Milan Erzen. But he's actually like decent enough. Like he won GP Adrian Mobile. So he's
Winter?
like, yeah, I think so. He's got a sprint
too.
on him. He beat Mareshko there.
Well, and there was no hill in the last 50 kilometers. So
yeah, but if you're 18 and you beat Mareshko a flat sprint, it's decent, you know.
I agree. Genuine win.
Yeah. They got, and then also from that team is Daniel Skirl. He's like a pure sprinter, like really big 5 and 10 second power. Actually, really don't be surprised if Skirl is quite good. Actually, now he looks like a classic sprinter, where his 5 to 20 minute values are really not that good.
So Kittel
he's not
type. Obviously not Kittel yet, but
no, more like Fabio type. Kittel had a big 5 min value, I think. He just weighed 90 kilos.
I don't know. I'm not so sure. Well, he was good in prologues, I guess, so technically you're right.
They had Kittel. They sold him. They let him go to Trek. But yeah, Skirl is actually quite an interesting sprinter, so just look out for him, because in U23s, there's not so many sprints on the national. Like, a lot of the races are kind of hard. They don't schedule so many absolutely flat sprints. Any of the other ones you want to pick out, Benji, that you have a view on?
So, first of all, Oliver Stockwell, British guy. I remember him from Tour of Britain. He got 15 for top 20 or something on the Queen stage, the Great Orme stage. The Great Orme, if you don't remember, was that steep ass hill that a few years ago we saw Hayter versus Wout van Aert versus someone else 1v1v1ing on. That was again in the Tour of Britain. Yeah, Alaphilippe was the name indeed. So this guy has the potential as well, although he doesn't have the out there results yet, like the victories that, for example, a Skrull and an Erden had. But then I look at Roman Ermakov, for example. He was also on that Cannibal Junior team in 2022. I think maybe Vlad van Mechelen was also on that team back in the day, moved to that feeder team for Bahrain Victorious then. He seems to be more of a punchy classic type. He can climb, but he's not the smallest of guys. I think he got 9 for maybe on Planche de Belfi or some kind of mountain stage. But don't expect this guy to be a pure climber. He's more a punchy classics type, I feel like. Then Max van der Meulen, Dutch guy. Luc Greft is already celebrating in the background of the podcast right now. Dutch guy who won a stage at Ronde de Lizard ahead of, I think, Nordhagen. This guy was three mountains on that stage. I don't know what happened in the stage, or I didn't see the stage. So whether he was ahead or not, or whether he was with the climbers over the climb. I know he can climb, but I don't know in comparison to Nordhagen what level he would be at in terms of that. But he's a climber, I would say.
He also, he's a bit more versatile than, say, he can ride the flat more than Nordhagen. He's a bit bigger. He is the guy that helped launch the raid against Torres in Tour de l'Avenir for Krat. So he was off camera, but he basically was the guy that bridged that across the breakaway, Van der Meulen. So he's actually quite an interesting rider. 6th in Roubaix U23, looks really versatile. I think he's quite interesting. I really like when you see these guys who like Ronde de Lizard, very consistent results. Yeah, not the best climber, but then you combine that with the classics, you combine that with a bit of race sense. You know, he's Dutch, so he's always going to win a reduced group sprint against other climbers.
Hot take.
Yeah, quite an interesting rider.
In the next 3 years, Max van der Meulen will podium Tour de Pologne.
Oh, that is a hot take.
That is a very hot take. Yeah. It's very specific.
Very specific. Did you go through Roman Ermakov?
I did, but I didn't go over Afonso Elalio yet. He's a Portuguese man. He was on a Portuguese team, ABTF Betao Ferense. And he's going over to Bahrain Victorious. What do you mean glass drive?
Well, yeah, they were like the 2022 glass drive. He was on the when they were the fluoro jerseys with Mauricio Moreira in the Volta Portugal.
I feel like I've heard of this man before. Maybe was there a period where Gonzalo Tavares, is that his name, was hyped up maybe 1.5 years ago, 1 year ago as a potential where Machin was flirting with? That's a weird thing to say considering he was a young guy. I mean more he was scouting him. That was a weird thing to say. I mean scouting. But Elalio was also in the same circle, I feel like, of people. But he's a climber, and he's actually a good rider in my opinion. 15 Asturias. That is the race that Isaac Del Toro won. You got second at Torres Vedras, podium multiple stage of Volta a Portugal. Is like open discussion here. In the past, we had question marks with the Portuguese circuit. Should we have that with a signing like this or not?
It depends. I would look at it on a rider by rider basis. Yeah, I personally don't like making broad brush conclusions of this rider is from this country, this rider was been on this team. I would never sign them. I look at it on an individual basis. Yeah, of course, there's riders on the Portuguese circuit that I wouldn't go, within 10 feet of, but he's a young guy. He's got results post the big raids that happened, not with Glass Drive, with the W52 bombers. He's got results this year. He's got results outside of Portugal. Getcho, you already mentioned Asturias. He's young, so yeah, that's how I would look at it. And even what you mentioned, Torres Vedras, that was second behind Aular.
Yeah,
who's like definitely a world tour level rider. He won a stage there uphill, so he can add a lot to Bahrain if he can perform at that level and improve a little bit. So he's an interesting rider from Portugal. So I'm keen to see how Afonso Eulalio goes. Just on Ermakov, he's from Viborg, which is near the border with Finland in Russia, which is also like where Vlasov is from. It's where Vlasov is from, I think. So it's interesting. The two cities. Well, yeah. It's not. Is it near Finland? Yeah, it's on the border with Finland. So west of St. Petersburg. What do you mean?
How do you know that there's a random village called Viborg by the coast? No, by the border with Finland in Russia. I'm sorry.
Because I know Vlasov's from there, and then 3 years ago when I saw he's from there, I looked up Viborg, like what its local economy is, where it is. I don't know. I just remember things. It's just unusual that there's two Russian cyclists, and they're both from the same town.
What is the go-to meal from Viborg, my friend?
Fucking
pure vodka.
NATO.
Fucking Next question.
It's a town in Western Russia.
For the team.
There's a castle there. Has a regional history museum. Yep. So yeah, I don't know about the meals there though. Other transfers. Yeah, you went through them all. You did Van Mechelen.
I did not do Vlad van Mechelen.
Okay, he was also on that Cannibal team. He's then went to DSM Devo. Now he's back in the Bahrain fold. Classics rider with a kick on him. Like good in Roubaix, U23s, Gaan Wevelgem, and Sturvanzwala. And I'm keen. He's quite a talented rider. In juniors, he was better relative to his competition than U23s. He wasn't as good in U23s. So there's more talent there maybe. So I'm keen to see how he goes. But yeah, that's a lot of Neo Pros, Benji. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.5 if we call Eulalio a Neo Pro. He was riding professional races. That's a lot.
I like it. I feel like when it comes to Bahrain Victorious, over the last year, I felt like, okay, what is their vision towards the future? Now they signed Lenny Martinez with a clear vision. Whether I agree with that vision or not, irrelevant. They've got a vision for him. Yes, he's on a big salary, but it's on him to now deliver based on that salary. Add to that all the youngsters that could grow, combined with Tiberi still being part of the team, who could still have a ceiling higher than what he's shown right now. Tiberi, in my opinion, can podium a Grand Tour in the next 2 years. Giro or Vuelta. I think that's possible. His climbing and time trial is on point. And let's be honest, every now and then we do see a rider on the podium of a Grand Tour that we don't expect necessarily 2 years earlier to be on it. So it wouldn't shock me if Mr. Catkiller is on it in the next 2 years. But overall, I do have a positive feeling about these transfers. Like, compared to what left the building, it's much better talent, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's way younger, and Skirl instead of Rajovic. Like Rajovic, it was never going to happen.
Yeah,
He's just not good enough. And then you've got
Conti sprinter.
at best, and so maybe Wout Poels is probably better than all of them right now, except for Martinez.
Mhm.
I would say still, but not for long. Not for long.
Yeah.
He's 37 years old, and probably the salary of Wout Poels pays for every single one of those neopros. Maybe,
For sure.
maybe 80% of them. So, if you got constraints on your budget, that's the way to do it. So, that being said, these riders are not going to come in and just start winning. I'm not either. Like, it's a big step up to start winning. Maybe Skirl because he can sprint.
Yeah.
He can win a crow race stage. That's at the end of the season. Those sort of races, I wouldn't be surprised.
With those kind of riders, I'm always curious, okay, what is their ability when it comes to the light classics, the 1.1 races and so forth? Let's say Scroll shows up at Le Samin, for example, which that often finishes in some kind of sprint, reduced group sprint after a cobble segments. Whether he can survive those kind of races, that affects the amount of victories he can get over the next couple of years as well, because those are the kind of races that, next to the Crow Race kind of stage wins and the Hungary stage wins, a rider of his sprint level could compete in once he can do that. But overall, net positive, I think, for the team, and they need it. They need more than this, I think, even to turn around what they have. Or do you believe that with a team they have already, plus this, they can already turn things around? Because let's be honest, if you look at the quality in the team, Butrago's in the team, they've got Bauhaus for those victories. Govekar can maybe step up a little bit. Bilbao maybe can find a little bit more consistency. Mohoric can't have a worse season than he had in 2024, so you'd expect him to step up again next season. Zambanini's been pretty damn good across the year, but he hasn't reached that. He's very talented, but he hasn't broken through yet, Zambanini. So for me, a hot take is Zambanini wins a Giro stage next year.
Yeah, he can. He's pretty good, although, yeah, he's got to get in the right situation, like Vendrame in a Giro breakaway, maybe.
Yep.
In
He's got a bit of a punch.
So, yeah, a bit of a punch, bit of a sprint. Okay, let's do their schedule, Benji. So I think it's pretty obvious they have to send to Sanremo, or Liège, Bilbao, and Moritz. They have to send. But then and Santi will probably do Liège as well. Tiberi maybe does Sanremo. Haig as well to Liège and the Ardennes. We haven't mentioned Fred Wright once in this podcast, Benji. He's only 25 years old. He's out of contract. He really, he had a shocking year, right?
Yep. Definitely. And it's Fred Wright, when it comes to his career, we've had this phase where he was so close to so many stage wins in the Vuelta and the Tour de France, multiple second places, multiple third places. And yes, some of those were just not being good enough on that day, but some others were also tactical mistakes in a group sprint, kind of choking the sprint, whatever. And when it comes to Fred Wright, this year has not been a good year, but that doesn't mean the next couple of years will be a shit year either. So I actually think Bahrain will have a better year next year as a consequence of all the factors I've mentioned before. There's so many riders that you'd expect more of than what they performed in 2024, to the point that you'd almost have to see them performing better in 2024 and 2025. Even outside of Lenny Martinez,
I agree. Haig, he has to have a better year. Bright has to have a better year. Bilbao had an unusually bad year for maybe the most regular rider in the previous 3 years of anybody. Moritz. So, and they're not 30, Bilbao a little bit older, but he's super professional, but they're not really, really old either. Yeah. So I agree that they should have a bounce back, and Wright is a quality rider, 25 years old, and he was so good in so many races in 22, 23, not long ago, so I expect and hope that he bounces back. But yeah, the schedule, so that's their classics team is, so in the flatter classics, they're going to have Bauhaus, probably their most realistic option to win a classic, frankly, is Bauhaus, fluking a Kerner sprint, which he could do, but that it's very, very unlikely. But I see that more realistic than maybe Moritz. I'm underrating then.
I don't know before the season started, I was expecting more from Govekar when it comes to the classics. Because remember that Govekar was a top 5 sprinter in the Dauphiné during that Dauphiné where Bennett and Groenewegen got disqualified? He was that Bahrain rider, sprinting very well there. And he is versatile. He can get over hills. So with that in mind, I was expecting him to be competitive in the likes of Kuurne and especially a Brugge de Panne or some kind of shit like that, you know? So I expect some kind of step up there because then he gets top 5s throughout the season, wins the stage at Guangxi. And I'm like, this is the kind of rider where you'd hope he could become that man for the Kuurnes in 2-3 years when it comes to this team, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, there's still talent there, he's still young, but maybe positioning in the classics is something, if you're not used to it, it's difficult to learn, or takes time to learn. But yeah, Moritz, I was just looking, like he's actually never won a one-day race in Belgium. He's won Bing Bank, of course, and multiple Renewy, which is in Belgium, and classic style parkour, but he actually never won a one-day race in Belgium. So it's not like you can say, oh, well, he will pick up E3 or something.
I've got an idea. You and I take a shovel, we go to the Paterberg, and we dig a giant hole next to the Paterberg to extend the descent of the Paterberg by 2 kilometers. Thoughts?
I think that's what they were doing when we went. I'm pretty sure they were already doing that when we drove past in March.
Yeah, that's
why that was a pretty deep hole. We'll just continue it.
That's the landslide.
I'm allergic to hard work. I'm afraid. So even Santi will have a probably better second half of the year. But the classics team is looking a little bit. I mean, I think they're going to put Stannard in those classics. Stannard's going to go. He's won Wallonie before in 22, and so yeah, it's going to be Govekar, Stannard, Moritz, Bauhaus for the flat ones, Nicky Sant, Vlad van Mechelen. So he's the only Belgian on the team, so he'll show them all the roads. Fred Wright, and they'll hope for the best. Giro Tiberi will lead with Caruso and Zambanini, probably Brutomesso and Buratti because they are Italian. Maybe they could, and then send Skirl. They could send an all-Italian squad with a sprinter and a GC rider to the Giro, so I think they should do that.
Brutomesso is also not a terrible sprinter. He got top 5s at Guangxi, I think, in sprints. Here or there. I think Bahrain swapped around Govekar and Brutomesso for the stage at Guangxi. Is that correct? If we take a look at the stage at Guangxi, one by one, we've got stage 1.
No, they just sprinted it side by side.
Oh, okay. Well, they got 4th and 5th together. Even worse than I thought. It would have been funnier if they switched around.
Yep. So they'll probably, they can go to the Giro. That'd be funny. But then that means, and then what do you do with Santi, Bilbao, and Lenny Benji? The other 3 GC riders.
To be honest, Bahrain always had the identity of like having multiple GC riders and letting them fight it out next to each other. Because even in the Landa days, Bilbao was still in the top 10 running around, you know, and then Haig was also somewhere in the top 10. So I don't see leadership issues being a major issue when Lenny Martinez and the rest of the GC riders all ride for the same GC. Butrago can do Tour Vuelta. Lenny Martinez maybe focus on Tour de France, and I want to see him do some 1-week races as well, to be honest, next to that. But I don't see that.
It is a good tour route for Lenny. It's a good tour route for Lenny. Like, long uphill finishes, 5 or 6 of them, an uphill TT, 1 flat TT, but you can't avoid that. First week's a bit tough for him, so they're going to need to help him out there, I think. But the mountain stages look really, really good for him. And we'll see. We'll see what happens with this team. They got a lot of riders now under 23 years old. About half the team is under 24. So they've gone from a bit older to a lot younger pretty quickly. Okay, how many World Tour wins you expect in 25, Benji?
I think they're going to do more than double their World Tour victories of this year. I think they're going to straight 7 or 8. Let's go for 7 World Tour victories next season.
I'm going to go with 6. Go with 6 World Tour victories. Just take the under on that because I think the sprinting field's pretty competitive. think Bauhaus, they put on a really hard schedule now. It's not like he's farming at Bologna anymore.
Yeah.
And so he might pick up one, and then the other sprint options are not ready to win at the big time just yet. So I'm going with 6.
Fair.
But I think they will have 20 wins. So they will increase their total win count by quite a lot on the minor calendar. Maybe 20, even 20.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, well over 20 wins, I think. With Lenny and the others.
All these tiny sprinters can get left and right a victory, whether it's Skrull, whether it's a Govakar in Tour de Hungary or Crow Race, whatever. Like, that will continue. I agree with you. Your assessment, sir.
Okay, that was the Bahrain Victorious preview. I hope they have a better year next year. And yeah, a lot of really riders that are quite likable. Morich, Fred Wright. I'm friends with Jack, obviously, and I hope that. And Bilbao seems really, really nice. So I hope they have a Govakar. So I hope they have a better year next year, and particularly in the stage races and classics. Well, that's literally fucking. That is. There are 2 types of racing and cycling. So yeah, I hope they have a better year. Yeah. And look forward to that. And I think they will. So thanks for listening as always, and we'll see you in the next preview. Ciao.